Hey, this is Jeff, and welcome back to the no-kill run of Mothership Zeta. Couple things before we get started. First, after the adrenaline rush wore off from getting spotted in the Steamworks last week, I was a bit worried. With Chinese stealth armor and the silent running perk, we're theoretically undetectable unless we literally bump into an enemy, and yet something detected us. When I was editing, I could see the alien was way down the hall and had its back turned when the HUD went from hidden to danger, so I'm 99% sure it was the turret. It's mounted where the large passage necks down to the small corridor, so it hangs a lot lower from the ceiling than most of them, and their collision detection extends a bit lower than the visible bottom of their 3D model. If the player hitbox brushes against even the tiniest sliver of an enemy's hitbox, that's all it takes to break stealth. Which is funny, because I looked straight at it and even zoomed in while I was waiting for the aliens to clear the corridor, and then walked right into it. Bottom line, don't walk directly under a turret unless it's on a high ceiling. Second, when I was testing the Sally grenade scenario, I noticed that creatures killed was 11 on my Pip-Boy, and it should not be. It should be 0. I kind of fell out of the habit of checking at the end of every episode, and I had to dig through some save files to figure out when it happened, but it was when Desmond killed Calvert in Point Lookout. Any remaining robots and turrets in the lab explode when Calvert dies, and we got charged with that. Which seems like the kind of thing I might have added as a strict accountability feature if you kill Calvert yourself, but we didn't. Desmond did. But I don't think it's an accountability thing. I'll explain why, and why it might be a bit tricky to fix when I get into the technical details at the end. Anyway, we need to release the astronaut from stasis because with the teleporters offline, the only way to gain access to the bridge is by going outside the ship. Not that we wouldn't free the others anyway, but there's only one button, so we don't really have a choice.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually miss those old Salisbury steaks back home.
Soma's back. That's good. Push the button, Frank.
Soma, what's it like down there? Is it still the same?
Same as when you were down there, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, everything was all blown up and really dirty. There were lots of sick people everywhere, too. And lots of people crying.
That about sums it all up. The world is still a huge mess.
I wish they could fix that. I hated being down there.
There isn't anyone left to fix anything.
Where am I?
Everything's in ruins, people are still fighting to survive, and I don't see anything that can change that.
Maybe we should just stay up here then. I hated when it was like that.
Hey, at least down there we're free. Well, most of us anyway. So let's just get the hell out of here.
Hi, lady. Oh no! That poor astronaut. Those freezers are so dangerous. Sometimes people don't wake up. I guess you better take his suit. You're going to have to go if he can't. But first, you have to get to the door to the outside. They'll be waiting for you. But you can suck out all the air and part of the ship, so they won't get in your way. They have these generator things that power parts of the ship and make sure it has air. You'll have to turn some of them off. There's one in the cryo lab, one in the hangar bay, and one where they make the robots, the robot assembly area. Once they're all broken, you can get through that door to the outside. And then, once you get to the top of the ship, you can turn the teleporter thing back on, and I can catch up to you. I guess it's time for me to get those doors unlocked for you now. This is fun.
Hold on. Why me? I mean, I don't expect a samurai or a cowboy to operate a spacesuit, but Elliot and Soma are both familiar with advanced technology. And a 20th century spacesuit is antique technology from our perspective. A child could do it. Hey, there's a thought. You like exploring, right? Okay, fine. I guess it won't fit you, but I think Soma, Elliot, and I should draw straws or something. But first, I guess we'd better get on with the generators.
Don't go alone. Those generators are in scary places. Take one of the grown-ups with you.
Good idea.
So you were down there when all this started, right before the bombs fell. That's crazy.
I guess so. I can't believe they went ahead with the nukes. I mean, they wiped everything out. How stupid could they be?
You don't seem the soldier type, Gregorio. Why the heck did you join the army in the first place?
Join? I was forced into service. I worked in a hospital before I was in the army. They put the gun in my hand.
Ever pull the trigger on that gun? You know, ever kill someone? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually miss those old Salisbury steaks back
Where
home.
are they?
What you want?
Cool. She has a child at heart option. Glad we took that. Hey, you've been all over. Do you have any stuff hidden around here?
Sure I do. I found a secret place they've never noticed. You want some of the stuff I have? Come on, I'll show you.
Kill those little bastards.
I don't know if you caught all that NPC chatter, but in very short order, we just learned that Sally's been a prisoner here since shortly after the Great War, that Elliot, the Anchorage soldier, was a medic who was conscripted against his will, Paulson, the cowboy, is pissed, and we got another subtle hint that Soma was working with slavers back in the wasteland. Speaking of which, thanks to the comments for reminding me that her dialogue that should be unlocked by the audio log we listened to last week is bugged. Which I should have remembered because Quo Vadis restores it. Sadly, we will not be hearing it this time, but it confirms that she worked with slavers.
What you want?
Nothing. I just wanted to see your hidden stash.
Oh, I hope we can find my sister somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think I asked about her family last week, but her parents are dead and her sister was abducted with her. But there's never any payoff. You never find her sister or her remains or any hint about whether she's dead or still in stasis somewhere aboard the ship. Sally's extensive knowledge of the ship and multiple escapes strongly suggest that she's been awake for most or all of the last 200 years. It's not clear if the aliens extended her lifespan or if she has a ghoul-like mutation that makes her immortal, which might explain why the aliens are interested in keeping her awake and studying her even though she's a pain in their ass. Anyway, she told us about 3 generators, but there are also 3 side areas that are permanently locked after you complete the main objectives, so I want to check those out first. This is the cargo hold. Why not? There's the Skyrim door. The first area is pretty much just a huge loop with 2 floors, the main deck and a catwalk with a few short side passages and so much loot. Most of which I'll be ignoring because of Luce's limited carry capacity. But if you leave everything at home because you assume DLC is going to strip your gear, you can find weapons and armor to suit just about any playstyle. Plus chems and crafting ingredients, just about any supplies you could want. And of course the first way I go is an empty dead end. Good job. One frequent criticism of this DLC is that it wants to have its cake and eat it too when it comes to the historical interaction between humans and the aliens. Which is fair. I'm just not sure if it was a lack of consistent vision on the design team or a conscious decision to parody real-world alien conspiracy theories, which are frequently bizarre and self-contradictory. Anyway, one example of that is in here somewhere. There's a prototype plasma pistol that was stolen from a pre-war Enclave lab as proof of an unspecified conspiracy, which isn't explicitly tied to aliens in-game, but the official game guide says the prototype was based on alien technology. Here we go. The prototype is in a safe on the other side of the level, but it can only be unlocked with this terminal. And while the game guide is officially non-canon, it makes sense because otherwise the chances that the aliens would have randomly stumbled across that specific guy and confiscated that specific item seem pretty remote. Except we know from earlier Fallout games that the Europeans developed plasma weapons independently. Now, those two things aren't mutually exclusive, and maybe the Enclave made a deal with the aliens to keep up with the Europeans, or stole it from them. It just opened up a whole can of worms that a lot of people thought didn't really mesh well with existing lore. The safe is over here by this trash disposal area. Read into that what you will. Whether or not the prototype is based on alien tech, it's just garbage to the aliens. There's also a lab that we'll see later where the aliens were studying human technology, including plasma weapons, so whether it was cooperative or competitive, the information exchange seems to have gone both ways. This note doesn't mention aliens, but otherwise, what was the conspiracy theory the guy was trying to prove? That the government does weapons research? Shocker! Although, maybe just the fact that the Enclave even existed. You know, the shadow power behind the official government. At least I don't think it mentions alien. Nope, not even a hint that the tech wasn't homegrown. The prototype itself is an outstanding option if you like energy weapons. High base damage and a really high crit chance, but useless to lose except as a souvenir. Now, the door to the next level is right here. Another notorious example of an attempted retcon that was universally disliked would have been on one of the captive audio logs. In the released game, you can only hear the alien interrogator, but the text for both sides of the conversation is still present in the game files, and the aliens would have been coercing a military officer into revealing nuclear launch codes, implying the aliens triggered the Great War. Here's the spacecraft the recently deceased astronaut came from. To be clear, aliens causing the war isn't canon because they either deleted the human lines or never recorded them. Presumably because they realized it would completely undermine the franchise's whole human folly, war never changes thing. Which supports the lack of consistent vision theory, because in an NPC background conversation we may or may not hear at some point, Elliot asks Soma something a lot of players have asked over the years. Who started the war, the US or China? And Soma says, "You don't get it. It doesn't matter." So whoever wrote that exchange got it, and whoever came up with the aliens started it idea didn't. At least I think so. I'm hardly the official arbiter of what Fallout should and should not be. I've received rare but harsh criticism for mods that reintroduced a bit of Fallout 2 vibe to 3 in Vegas, so take my opinion for what it's worth. And speaking of alien captive logs, there are 2 of Sally being interrogated, and as always you can't understand what the aliens are saying, but it's clear from her responses in one of them that they're asking about Giddy Up Buttercup. And she says, like, "It's a toy, you guys are weird." And as we go deeper into this area, the more obvious it is that they were indeed obsessed with Giddy Up Buttercup. I nibbled around the edges of this idea a little bit in Quo Vadis, but in some areas the alien technology isn't that much more advanced than late 21st century human technology. Other than propulsion, I guess. Exhibit A, some human robots are more sophisticated than the drones you see on this ship. It's not clear why they chose to study Giddy Up Buttercup instead of, say, a sentry bot. Maybe a toy was easier to hack than a military robot. But they have way more than they need for simple reverse engineering, which suggests to me they wanted to subvert their programming and replace them for some nefarious purpose. And that's what I was after, the Giddy Up Buttercup toy on the second shelf. Wasn't sure if I'd be able to jump high enough to grab it while sneaking, but no problem. It's also possible the whole thing is just a sight gag, but this is a lot of effort to put into a joke. My best guess is they wanted to observe human children and possibly even hold them hostage in a crisis. And since it was an expensive toy, it would have been mostly rich people's kids, so the human authorities would have been less likely to say, "Whatever, do your worst." What's in here? Healing Arch. Could use a top-up, why not? Huh. I guess the message only tells you what the skill requirement is if you don't meet it. But I did check, and it's Science 75, not Repair, so I was wrong last week. Modify the device. Use the arch. There we go. Full heal. Anyway, the last room in this area is kind of creepy and indicates pretty clearly that they weren't just studying the Buttercups. For whatever reason, they were weaponizing them. Yeah. Fairly successfully, too, from the look of it. And the victims are only identified as test subjects, but they're wearing assorted wasteland outfits, not pre-war outfits, so it would seem the tests are fairly recent. Which I realize undermines my theory, so if you have a better explanation, let me know in the comments. The teleporter takes us to the Skyrim door, and when we get back to the engineering core, there'll probably be a scripted event going on. I'm pretty sure it's triggered the first time you explore any side area, not just the ones with generators. Guess we'll see in a minute. Yeah, let's see what's going on.
He's not going anywhere. Why don't we just hold on to him and try to negotiate? You know, like a hostage.
And how are we supposed to do that? We can't understand what the hell they're saying.
I don't know. But maybe we should... There must be something.
No sense discussing it now.
We'll see why Paulson hates the aliens more than the others when we talk to them, which we definitely want to do before we start on the generators. But first, let's check out the other two optional areas. This one is the engine room. To me, this is the least interesting of the bunch. The only special loot is a unique stun baton, which isn't bad for a melee weapon user, but loose obviously isn't. You'd think the engine room would be more important plot-wise or more interesting set-wise, or both, but it's just a big loop of pretty standard rooms and corridors without any unique touches like you find in the cargo hold or waste disposal. Wait until this drone goes by.
What you want?
Hello? What the hell are you doing here? I think I've seen this before. Sally has an AI package to force greet you after you destroy each generator to kind of update her on your progress, but the conditions are actually triggered when you explore any side area, just like the prisoner scene. You should go.
Be careful, lady.
Yeah, you too. In fact, that's what I thought she was doing when I saw her run through the engineering core before Paulson killed the alien, but for some reason she didn't talk to us at the time. I'm guessing she was still on her way back from the hidden stash, and the AI made her actually reach her default patrol location before it would let her start the forced greet. By that time, I was already down here. Fortunately, as we discovered last week, the aliens aren't hostile to her. Which is good, because the drone cannons have an area effect, and at this range, we would have totally been in the blast radius. Now, if we can get the timing right... Excellent. Pretty much this whole level is going to be like that. In fact, if any of the corridors don't have alcoves like back there, we might not be able to get all the way through. I mean, we could, but it'd require bumping into somebody and then spamming stim packs until we got through, which I'm not really inclined to do. I know I have a lot, but I don't think it's worth it because, like I said, this area just really isn't that interesting. I do want to get into at least that room because that's where the unique shock baton is. Just need to wait for both drones to be in the perfect position. Their patrols aren't synchronized, so this is more about reaction than timing. And if that one never leaves the corridor, we might not even be able to get into the shock baton. Maybe if I wait on the other side of the partition. Whoa! Oh, that was close. But the other one is out of the corridor. Well, now that one's going in. No, it didn't. Go. Oh, there's another one in here. Great. And an alien. And I don't even see the weapon on that table. Thought it was in here. Permission granted for anyone who wants to use clips from this video for an essay about poor life choices. Is it really not there? Yes, it is. Got it. Out. Now to get back through this room. Oh, easy. Now, I think there might be a turret in the corridor to the left. Or maybe not. But there is the terminal we need to unlock the way forward. Luckily, there are doors at both ends. That's the door we need to open. No, now he's coming this way. Is he going to leave the area? Apparently not. Well, go back around the other way. Play a little ring around the rosy. There we go. The teleporter situation gets a little confusing eventually. Some of them, like that one, are just for the game to spawn reinforcements if you get into combat. But others are actually usable, despite Sally saying the aliens shut them down. Or I guess that's not entirely true. She only specifically says they shut down the one to the bridge, which is a pretty obvious security precaution when there are escaped prisoners on the loose. But sometimes there's not an obvious plot reason why certain teleporters are active and others aren't. There is an obvious meta reason, level design and playtest results. Basically, how much do you want to force the player to do in a certain order and how much should be open. And that leads to the control booth you can see from the main room, but I'm not sure if it's worth going back there. There's some generic DLC loot, biogel and epoxy, crystals, power modules, that kind of thing, but nothing really important. Yeah, I'm just going to move on. I think I mentioned last week that the epoxy works like a weapon repair kit in New Vegas. It improves the condition of your currently equipped weapon when you use it. The biogel is just a normal healing item, basically a stim pack with a different appearance. The crystals don't do anything, but they're pretty valuable and have 0 weight, so definitely worth picking up, either to sell or as souvenirs. And the power modules or ammo for the alien weapons. From Lou's perspective, more 0 weight loot. There's the first alien with a shield we've seen. They're ridiculous bullet sponges, and fortunately they're only spawning as mini-bosses right now. In fact, that one might be hard-coded to always appear regardless of your level. At level 19, they start spawning all over the place, and that would be a nightmare. As I've mentioned before, level management is one of the factors that went into deciding what order to do the DLC in. And Lou's just hit level 17 at the end of Point Lookout, so I really didn't want to put this one off any longer. The weapons are actually really good. The Atomizer if you favor pistols, or the Disintegrator if you like rifles, and later we'll find unique variants of each one that are even better. I've picked up more than I actually need because I'm planning to combine them to get one each in perfect condition as souvenirs. And I'll probably stash as many Atomizers as I can to take back to the Wasteland because they have one of the highest value to weight ratios of any item in the game. Maybe the highest. Oh good. Cannon drones and aliens with shields in a cluster around the exit. We're almost to the end though. It would really suck to have to turn around and go back the way we came now. Can we get over to this corner? Okay, so far so good. Okay, being backed into a corner is a pretty generous definition of good. I mean, it's not that bad. We just have to wait for 4 unsynchronized random patrol packages to all end up in the right place at the right time. And yes, it does sound kind of bad when I put it like that. Well, don't come over here. Okay. It's mildly alarming that it's looking right at us and flailing its arms, but on the bright side, it's just a support drone, not a guardian drone. The ones with the big cannons. Well, if they get stuck trying to walk past each other... Good, they didn't. Is that enough room? I think it is. Almost out. I think that's the... Oh! No! Oh, man! Yeah, we're back in the main room. Sunk cost fallacy for the win. Now, let's get out of here before I push my luck beyond its breaking point. We do still have to get past the guys in this hallway. Hello. I didn't really need healed, but I did need an alcove to hide in. And there's the one we hid in on the way there. Probably could have made that. Wait for its next circuit. There we go. And out. Don't bump into the last guy. Well, I stand corrected. Still nothing important lore-wise in that level, but it definitely wasn't boring. Now, let's find Sally and let her get any urge to force greet us out of her system. No, that's the samurai. We'll talk to him later. Doesn't look like she's still down by the hidden stash.
This ship is huge. How did they build something so big?
Probably back by the cryotubes then. Yeah, there she is.
What you want?
Nothing. I just had a feeling you might want to talk. I don't think she has much to say that we don't already know. These topics are really just reminders. I have to go now.
Oh, I hope we can find my sister somewhere. What you want?
2 in a row. I really have to go.
Be careful, lady.
Any more? No? Okay. Don't sneak up on me in any other sections, please. Well, I was hoping I could finish all 3 optional levels and get on with the generators next week, but I don't think there's going to be a lot to cut out of that little adventure, and I saved waste disposal for last because it's arguably the most interesting. At least in terms of set pieces, if not plot. So I think I'm going to save here and call it a day. If you bail out when I start talking about technical stuff, don't forget to like the video before you go, subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't already, and leave a comment if you have questions or suggestions or thoughts on the Calvert situation. Quick update on the kill counter. I checked after I stopped recording, and now it's 12, the 11 I mentioned in the intro, plus 1 mystery kill, which I tracked down to this alien in the Steamworks last week. I didn't notice at the time because I was kind of busy doing a Benny Hill routine with a dozen aliens on my tail, but it's killed by a script when Sally's route through the vents brings her back into proximity with the player. The comments in the script imply she kills it with a grenade, but that's clearly not on the player's conscience because A, we didn't give her one, and B, even if you do, you only give her 1, and she uses it on the group at the Steamworks entrance. So I'll definitely be adding a feature to remove that one from your kill count. Now, the Calvert situation. The robots and turrets in the lab all have object scripts that wait for Calvert to die and then kill themselves. The Who Killed Me parameter is set to the player, but I don't think that's an accountability thing. They also use the Destroy Body Part parameter to explode their heads, either to imply Calvert was directly controlling them, or to make the endgame destruction more dramatic, or both. 1 and 2 mean head 1 and head 2 for creatures that have to, so calling it twice like that would make more sense on a Brahmin than a robot or a turret. The thing is, both parameters are optional, but to use the second parameter, you have to set a value for the first. That's just how the syntax in the scripting engine works. They could have set Who Killed Me to each robot's own ref, but typing player once and then cut and pasting it to all of their scripts would have been a lot easier. Not saying they were lazy, but that's how I would have done it unless I needed to check who killed them later for some reason, and no other scripts do. Bottom line, I don't think they really cared about the Who Killed Me parameter. I think they just went with the easiest thing that let them use the Destroy Body Part parameter, which they did care about. But that's related to why fixing it is tricky. The good news is they all have persistent refs because the vanilla scripts need them. The bad news is we obviously can't use their Who Killed Me value to figure out which ones were killed by a script and which ones were actually killed by the player, if any. The good news is, regardless of whether they were being lazy or thorough, the fact that they destroy both heads provides the answer. We can call Is Limb Gone to see if head 2 is dismembered, and if it is, that means a script killed it, because there's no way for the player to destroy head 2 on a creature that only has 1. And it's pretty simple to set up a script to monitor them, and when they're dead, remove any that weren't killed by the player from their creature's killed total, very much like what I did with Tranquility Lane. Maybe the hardest question is a design issue, whether or not the adjustment should be enabled by default. I'm leaning toward yes, but the decision isn't quite as black and white as it was for Tranquility Lane. There, it's clear-cut that the residents die or they don't, and the unmodded game has it backwards, so the PAM feature is really a bug fix. Here, they do die, and there are really 2 questions. First, is the player responsible for the robots if they kill Calvert? That feels pretty similar to giving Colonel Autumn the wrong code or using the Vault 92 Sonic Flush. The Lone Wanderer has no reason to believe anyone's going to die, so neither one counts against you unless you have strict accountability mode enabled. and if the player kills Calvert, I'd be inclined to treat the robots and turrets the same way. That is, creatures killed would be adjusted by default, and only leave it as the vanilla game sets it if you have strict accountability turned on. The other question is, what if Desmond kills Calvert? And personally, in that case, I don't see any way the player can be blamed for Calvert's death, much less the robots. You have to explicitly refuse to kill anything for that to happen, and unlike the situation where you actively help Sally kill the aliens by giving her a grenade, once you refuse to kill Calvert, you couldn't stop Desmond from doing it even if you tried. But the Tranquility Lane feature is configurable, even though I feel pretty strongly about what the right answer is there, and the same would apply here. So maybe it needs to be two separate configuration options, because I can see people having different opinions about the two scenarios. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.